Hello, I'm the Cartoon Gentleman, bringing you organized chaos. And tell me, how many of you out there want to get shit-faced drunk tonight? Now you're speaking my language, boy. Well, good for you, because this is what this episode contains. Alcohol? That is correct. This is Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. What? That's the name of the episode. Super Speedy Cider Squeezy 6000. That's a bit of a mouthful. Yeah, I know. Well, the episode begins with Rainbow Dash waking up Fluttershy in the middle of the night in order to race over to Applejack's Sweet Apple Acres in order to get the first cider of the season. Only to discover that Pinkie Pie had been camping out there the whole night, as well as the rest of the town. Apparently, this cider is that addictive. Wait a minute, I thought you said we're getting plastered. We are getting plastered. How are we going to get plastered for apple cider? Well, take a closer look at that apple cider. See something strange? Do you see something off about the cider? I don't get what you're going at. Well, here's the thing. Cider doesn't fizz and bubble. How is it fizzing and bubbling if it's not supposed to fizz and bubble? Well, cider can fizz and bubble if there's alcohol in it. Oh my gosh! Well, as it turns out, the apples just can't seem to make enough apple cider to get the whole town drunk. And it's made all that much more harder because Pinkie Pie keeps buying up more than her fair share. So, Rainbow Dash is forced to go another day without sweet cider. That is until a strange-looking vehicle rolls into their territory, and riding it is the two fan favorites, Flim Flam of the Flim Flam Brothers. So their names are Flim Flim Flam and Flam Flim Flam Flim Flim Flam Flim Flam Flim Flim Flam Flim Flam Flim blah 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 Flim Flam Flim Flam. That's such a weird word to say. Well, the Flim Flam brothers sing a sweet little ditty, which sounds more like Family Guy than My Little Pony, about their Super Speeder Cider Squeezy 6000, of how it can produce cider twice as fast and twice as delicious as any of the apples. They just want to go into a joint business venture, saying that the apples will supply the apples and they'll supply the cider maker. But Applejack seems to question their motives and decides to go with no deal. One question always boggled me. How come Applejack didn't take him up on their offer? I can understand Granny Smith being stubborn, but what about the kids? I mean, they know how hard it is to make all the cider for Sweet Apple Acres. And if it's going out as frequently as it has been, maybe they do need the help. So, why doesn't Applejack want to sell? Because they have alcohol! Well, that will explain it. Now, of course, the Flim Flam brothers aren't taken kindly to being turned down on their gracious offer, so they decide to compete with these apples to see who could produce the best cider. To you Flim Flam brothers, I say, good luck with that. Seriously, just good luck competing with the apples. You may have all the cider that could feed all of Ponyville, but it won't do you any good without the apples. And let me let you in on a little secret. The apples hold the monopoly on apples in Ponyville. Yeah, you'd have to have them all imported. You'd have to have all the apples imported from somewhere else, which would ultimately cost more money. So yeah, great business plan there, Flim Flams. Great business plan. But then Granny Smith does the stupidest thing she could have possibly have done and challenges the Flim Flam brothers to a competition. The most cider made gets the deed to the farm, but the loser has to leave Ponyville forever. Yeah. Real dumb there, Granny Smith. You know, I'm starting to think that my dementia joke from my last review involving Granny Smith may not have been too far off. So this story goes full John Henry as the apples compete against the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy to create more cider to own the land, but the apples just can't keep up. So they are allowed one lifeline, allowing their friends to help with the production. And with the power of friendship, they technically make better cider than the Super Speeder Cider Squeezy, but the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy of the Flim Flam Brothers just tastes awful. And again, I'd like to point out another plot hole. The challenge was who could make the most cider, not if it actually tastes good. So technically the apples still lose. Yep, they still lost. The only thing that really lets them win is because the whole town rejects the cider. But the apple still lost. The Flim Flam Brothers won, and now they're stuck with all those barrels of bad cider. Yep, good going, Granny. But of course, that's not how My Little Pony works. They chase Flim and Flam out of the town. Applejack has a bunch of cider that would feed the whole town, and Rainbow Dash finally gets a cup. And thus, Applejack is allowed to continue poisoning the residents of Ponyville with her alcoholic beverage. Okay, I'm being way too harsh on this episode. I really liked it. I've always been a fan of the story of John Henry. Oh, you don't know what John Henry is? It's a tall tale about how a steel worker was able to beat the machine, but then had a heart attack. Look it up, it's actually a nice read. But Applejack is a mirror image of that tale. This whole episode was. And honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. But I cannot ignore the plot holes. I cannot ignore the fact that Applejack did technically lose. I cannot ignore the fact that the Super Speedy Cider Squeezy, despite being a marvelous production, is made completely irrelevant because of Applejack's stubbornness to move on with the times. I cannot ignore the fact that the Flim Flam Brothers tried to challenge Applejack to who can make better cider when they had no apple trees to begin with in Ponyville to work from. Let all that sink in. So, I'm the Cartoon Gentleman, I brought you organized chaos, and I'm going to get shit bent on Applejack's apple cider. It's laced with alcohol.